Hello, welcome to Book Talk. Today's book is Humany Leadership Mindsets, Skills, and Behaviors for Being a Successful People-Centric Leader. What a wonderful title of a book. And I'm your host, Anthony Moirore. Welcome to the show. And today's author of the book is with us, as always. And it's not the first time. He's been with us before, and he's coming back to tell us about this wonderful title of a book, Humany Leadership. Humany Leadership. And so, without taking one more minute, I'm going to introduce to the show Stephen Howard. Welcome.
Hey, Anthony. Thank you very much. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's wonderful. We are honored to have you back here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I mean, you've got a great show. You've really built your audience in the last 2 years. So I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, wonderful. And for the sake of someone who was not here the first time that you were here, maybe you may introduce yourself.
Well, as you can tell by my accent, I'm an American, but I've actually spent most of my adult life living outside the United States. I lived in Asia for 21 years, traveled all over Asia professionally, had in my business work there, and then lived in Australia for 12 years. And now I'm actually living in Mexico City. So I continue to live globally and enjoy multicultural experiences and enjoying work with the people around the world. So that's kind of my background.
Beautiful. And you've written over 20 books and still writing. Where do you find the energy?
I tell people I'm a boring person. I don't go out and disco dance. I don't go to bars. I just write. But I do a lot of my writing in honesty when I'm traveling. And in honesty, when I am traveling, I don't go out. I do my business during the day and I go back to the hotel room, or I go to a restaurant, have a nice meal, and I go back to the hotel room with a little bit of inspiration and spend a couple hours in the evenings or an hour in the morning and write. And then I do a lot of my editing on airplanes. So I utilize that time on an airplane to edit, and it seems to work out well for me.
That's beautiful. Now,
Yeah.
it's good that you mentioned this because the last time, or the first time that I published my book, and some people are asking me, how do you write a book? And I was telling them, you just start writing. And someone says, I don't have a laptop. I ask him, what are you saying? I mean, you can write on anything, anywhere. And actually, my second book, I kind of did it on the airplane too. When I was going shopping, anywhere that I find myself, I'm just putting in. So it's good that you mentioned that to someone who may be having an excuse of why he's not written a book.
Yeah, yeah, and airplanes are great because you can't be disturbed. I mean, in our life, everyone's so busy, running 24/7. Your phone's constantly beeping with messages. Your IMs on your computer are beeping, and I find the airplane just beautiful. I put on a headset, listen to my music, I lock myself in. I'm probably the worst or the best passenger in the world because I never talk to the person next to me. So if they want to talk, I'm a terrible passenger. If they want quiet, I'm a wonderful passenger.
So you are one of those people that actually, on a light note, said thanks to COVID, I can now cover my mouth and just keep it to myself and do what I have to do.
Actually, even before COVID, I never talked to anybody. So,
Okay, thank you for all that. Now, human, human in leadership. How did you come up with that name? I haven't seen that name before, and maybe you can tell us how it all started and how you came to it.
well, the other inspiration for me is a nice glass of red wine. So I was sitting on my balcony. Sunset was beautiful. I was, working on the concept of the book, and just thinking about things that leaders need to do differently. And somehow I started thinking about leaders, and I came with this thought, and I paraphrase Yoda. Yoda says we need to unlearn what we've learned, and so
Mm-hmm.
I wrote on a piece of paper: leaders need to unlearn management and relearn to be human. And then I started playing around with the word human, and I'd been doing some work a couple days early about workplace wellness and talking about harmony. And I wrote the word harmony on a piece of paper, and then I thought about, the global need of humanity, and somehow those three words connected, and it, like the proverbial light bulb went off, and I started doing permutations of those three words, and I came up with the word humany. I created the word. It's not a word you'll find in the dictionary. Hopefully, in the future, somebody will recognize it. But basically, it combines humanity, and harmony, and to really emphasize the need for leaders, that you're leading people,
Mm-hmm.
and for leaders to create workplaces of wellness and harmony. And nobody talks about harmony in the workplace. And when I talk to people, I'll ask people, say, hey, describe the harmony of your workplace. And they laugh at me. They say there's no such thing as harmony in the workplace. So Belozy, I see your comment in the chat box there. Thank you very much. Belozy likes the name, so appreciate that. But yeah, that's how the name came along. Literally sitting on my balcony, watching the sun go down, and playing around with words, and this inspirational idea came to me.
And that's beautiful. And it's good that you had mentioned the dictionary book, because I was going there. I was saying, this sounds a very good name. I actually went to the dictionary to see if it's there. And I foresee it sometimes in the future finding its place there.
I
I
hope
mean,
so. I mean, every year Oxford and Webster, they add 30, 50 words to the dictionary. So if enough people take this concept to heart and talk about it, maybe the word will be something they do put in the dictionary. It should be nice. I don't know how you would translate it though into other languages. So in English it works. I don't know. I have no idea how you would translate it into Spanish or Greek or French or anything else. It'll be an interesting exercise for somebody.
now, these are wonderful and interesting times that we are living in.
Yeah.
And every single day we are seeing new things, and this is a new thing that is going, I believe. Now, we are sending every person who's watching or those who is listening, go and vote for this word to go into the dictionary.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Humany.
Have a campaign.
Yeah, do a campaign, set a campaign and make it appear. Now, human leadership. And uh, please dive us deeper into these, where you start of talking about today's business environment. How is it different from previous years, the
Yeah,
environment of today?
it is so different. And I will be the first to admit that if you're a leader who's 45 years or older, it's going to be a hard change to make, because you've been very successful. You've been
Mm-hmm,
successful before the pandemic, doing certain things, being very directive with people. But what we found coming out of the pandemic, particularly, and this has impacted the great resignation, is people don't want to go back and work in situations where there's bullying in the office, where there's unkindness, where they don't get a say. People want to be respected. They want to have a say, or at least an input into how things might be executed. Not necessarily in the strategy, but how things will be executed. And people are making decisions. I don't want to go back to those kind of workplaces. So if leaders don't change, look, you'll be very successful for the next couple of years. You don't have to change. But
mm-hmm,
if you don't change, that's going to die out very quickly. And so leaders who do change, and here's an example of the kind of change I'm talking about. I've seen, and I do a lot of consulting, I do a lot of coaching of leaders. And so often I'll see a new leader come into an organization or into a department or into a team, and they'll start off by saying, here's how you earn my trust. Well, that's wrong. That's the old way. The new
mm-hmm,
way, the proper way with today's workforce, is to really walk in and say, you have my trust. Here's how you can lose it. If you don't tell me when a problem arises, you can lose my trust. If you don't come to me when you make a mistake and admit you make a mistake, you can lose my trust. So people want to be trusted. They want to be trusted by their bosses. And unfortunately, research shows around the world, this is a global phenomenon, that
mm-hmm,
uh, employees do not feel that they're trusted by their managers and their
mm-hmm,
leadership. And again, that's contributing to the great resignation, or this new thing that people are talking about called quiet quitting, which people are not quitting. People are just not going to put in extra hours. They're not going to put in extra. Quiet quitting just basically means you're going to pay me to work 9 to 5, and here's my job description. That's what I'm going to do. I'll clock in at a few minutes before 9. I'm going to clock in clock out right at 5 o'clock, and I'm going to do only what I'm told. I'm not going to volunteer for extra assignments. I'm not going to put my hand up to do extra work, and I'm certainly not going to work on weekends, because I've got family life. So I think that's one of the big changes, Anthony, right there.
Mm. And I love that where you start as on a higher note. I mean, it's not that we are beginning from no trust to trust is beginning from trust to a bigger trust, maintaining trust and maybe growing it upwards. And
Absolutely.
that's a great approach.
Yeah.
Now,
The
yeah, go
I was
on,
going
go
to
on.
say the second change I think that's happening, and this I think is great for society. I mean, it may not be great for businesses, but particularly those who want to focus only on results, 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 which is burning out people. But quite frankly, I think coming out of the pandemic, one of the silver linings is that we have learned, and as leaders, we need to acknowledge it. We used to say, yeah, we know people have lives outside work. But now we realize people actually have responsibilities outside work, and that's
Hmm.
different. We have to recognize that. We have to appreciate, whether it's caring for elderly parents, children's care, maybe we volunteer to be a sports coach for one of our children, whatever it is. We have responsibilities outside the workplace, not just a life. And so I think that's the other key thing, and I think that is really what is at the heart of Humany leadership is understanding that the people working with you and for you, they have responsibilities. That's work. We acknowledge that. We
Hmm.
need to respect that. Go off an hour early or leave something. I mean, I remember when my first job, uh, it was like you almost had to put in writing a request to go see the dentist during work hours. I mean, you would have had to have a tooth that was impacted, and you would have to be in huge pain before your boss would say you could go see the dentist. Like, why can't you see your dentist on Saturday? Well, now
Hmm.
I think people understand it's not just the dentist. If I got to pick if my children have I don't, my children are older now, but if I'm a parent and my children are doing something and I need to be there, then
Hmm.
I need to take time off work, and my colleagues need to respect that, and my bosses need to respect that.
Mm. Beautiful. And you talk about maybe as we go deeper into the book, you talk about the steps that are required to elevate leaders' mindsets to become human leaders. What are the steps?
Oh, there's many. I'll give you a couple of them.
Okay.
One of them is to understand you lead people. And managing people is a 1980s construct. And, I used to be proud of the fact that I used to manage people when I was, in the 1980s,
Mm-hmm.
1990s. People don't want to be managed. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I can't wait to be managed by my boss today. Or even worse, I can't wait to be micromanaged by my boss today. We
Mm-hmm.
lead people. Vice Admiral Grace Murray Hopper from the U.S. Navy had a great phrase, and she said, you manage things, you lead people. So I've extended that concept of her great quote. I've extended that in the book to say, look, you manage things, you manage processes, you manage policies, you manage procedures, but you lead people, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
big mindset change to understand that. So that's one way to elevate. You've got to get away from managing people. You've got to lead people. You have to mentor people. One of your main responsibilities as a leader is to develop your people.
Mm-hmm.
You have to continue developing, whether that's through mentoring or coaching or formal training, whatever it is. That's one of your most important um, goals or objectives, I guess, as a leader is to manage people. So those are two of the key changes. And as I said earlier, uh, quoting Yoda, you have to unlearn management and
Yeah.
relearn to be human. We need to learn to be kinder to each other in the workplace, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's one. Next.
Well, that's kind of two of them together there.
Ah, okay.
The other thing is to understand leadership is an art, and it's the art of achieving progress through the involvement and actions of people. And so the key word there is progress, because when you focus only on results, results, results,
Mm-hmm.
you burn people out. You cause friction and drama in the workplace. You want to achieve progress. Now, you may not hit your results for the year, but guess what? You want that same team to work together next year. And so you want to achieve as best you can, achieve the highest level of progress you can. And I'm not saying results are not important, but if you only focus on results, you end up with teams that are fractured and can't work together on the next project, or even worse, as we're seeing in the Great Resignation, people leaving the organization. And let me tell you something: you cannot grow your business Whether your business is, again, a department, a division of a company, or if you're an entrepreneur and you're running your own company, you cannot grow your business when you're spending a significant amount of your time hiring replacement employees, going
Mm-hmm.
through that process. I mean, if you're spending, whether it's 10% or 15% or 20% of your time replacing lost workers, how the heck are you going to grow your business? So that's the other one. Then the third one, I guess, is I kind of reference it a little bit there, is this focus on results, 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 only results is what's causing people to leave,
Mm-hmm.
because the results only benefit the senior leadership. They only
Mm-hmm.
benefit the shareholders, and quite frankly, the shareholders mostly are corporate investors anywhere. They're not even people. They're professional. They're people, professional investors, but it's all these mutual funds and equity funds and retirement funds that are investing in publicly listed companies. So it's not like individual investors anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
that's part of it. And the last one I'll add there is, and so I'll ask you, if I talk to you about what is the cost of your human workforce, what's the first couple of things that might come to your mind when I talk about the cost of your human workforce? What do you think about?
The cost of my human workforce. I
Yeah,
mean,
like salaries, like,
yeah.
okay, salaries, medical benefits, annual leave, office space. That's true from a financial standpoint, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that a humany leader, when they look at the cost of the human workforce, they need to look at what's the cost to the mental health of our workers? What's the
Mm-hmm.
cost to our physical health? What's the cost to the emotional health? What are we doing by asking people to work 50, 60 hours a week? How's that impacting their relationships, their marriages, their family lives? Again, their responsibilities outside the workplace. So I think when we, as leaders, when we look at when we ask people or think about asking people to work such long hours for long periods of time, understand that the human cost is not what's on the balance sheet. It's not what's on the expense form. It's the cost to humanity and the cost to society of that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for understanding if you got a deadline, everyone needs to put in extra effort. I work extra hours when just before the book came out. I put in a lot of work, a lot of hours those 3 or 4 weeks before the book got published. But you need to balance that out, and you can't keep doing that long term.
Now, since many people now moved into working remotely, how do you sustain that connectivity? Which are the means, the best means to maintain the connectivity and the working in collaboration in harmony?
Yeah.
Harmony. Uh-huh.
In humanity, and yeah, it's leadership is all about communication. I mean, you have to change. I mean, it's interesting to see the early articles about this now and saying that, oh, there's a bias for people who are in the workplace who, you see every day, they're going to get the plum assignments, they're going to get the promotions. And I'm going, no, you have to stop. You have to change. Everyone who works for you, whether they're co-located with you or they're working from home, or even if they're working in another facility outside yours, they're part of your team. You have to change. You're going to have to do more meetings, more one-on-one conversations. You're going to make sure the way you run your meetings, you keep them included. You just don't focus like you're having like a Zoom meeting with some people that are in the same conference room as you and other people who are on camera. Make sure you get everyone included. It's a change. Again, you're going to have to change your style. But we've made changes over the years. I mean, um, I think it was like 50 years ago, the 40-hour work week was implemented by law. I mean, before that, people used to work people 50, 60 hours, but didn't pay them for those extra hours. Well, now we've had
Mhm.
to adjust and pay people for overtime. Um, more than 8 hours a day. If it's a shift worker or a factory worker, they get paid overtime more than 8 hours. We've had to make changes based on legislation. We've had to make changes in other ways in terms of, when email came out, we had a lot fewer meetings, a lot fewer conversations, a lot fewer phone conversations. Everyone relied on email. Well, maybe
Mhm.
it's time to rely a little less on email and get back to some telephone conversations with one another. So it will require a change, no doubt about it.
Mm. And at this point, let me thank each and every person who's watching us, and those who are listening to us, and those who also get to listen to us after we are through with this episode. We thank you, and we ask you to keep sharing this with all your friends, and let's Yeah, don't forget the campaign. We will remind you about the campaign to make Humony a dictionary term. Now, we'll
Vote
keep
Humany. Vote Humany.
human, human. Yeah, we talk much. We talk much about the pandemic that happened, and that's something that was unexpected. And in the change that you're saying, we've got to change, and we don't know what lies in the future. So you talk about uncertainty in your book. I mean, living in times that you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Uh, How? What are your thoughts on that?
I get my Harry Potter wand out and I wave it and I can tell you what the future will look like, and I can guarantee you the future will
Yeah.
be more ambiguous and more
Mhm.
uncertain. Right? We're going to have to live with ambiguity, uncertainty, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, Anthony, because this book is not written for CEOs
Mhm.
only. I mean, it is written. My definition of a leader is anyone who leads people. So if you're
Mhm.
leading a 3-person team in an organization, or a 300-person team in a department, or an organ, this book is for you if you lead people. And in talking about dealing with ambiguity and uncertainty, part of it is, again, goes back to communication. Um, the old style of leadership is to say, this is what we're going to do,
Mhm.
full stop.
Yeah.
The Humany style leadership is to say, based on what we know today, this is what we're going to do. I, as your leader, would like to hear your inputs. What do you think might be happening? And as change comes along, we will make changes, and we'll changes as quickly and adapt as quickly together as it makes sense. So a
Mhm.
little bit of humbleness in a leader today. Not have all the answers. We can't have all the answers, as you say. We have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, if you go back, I mean, where we were in October 2022. If we go back 18 months ago, February of 2021, how many of
Mhm.
you would have predicted the Russian invasion of Ukraine? How many of you would have predicted inflation at 10% in many countries, or 8 to 10% at least in most countries? How many of you would have predicted the Federal Reserve raising interest rates 4 times in a row at 75 basis points each time? I mean, how many of you would have predicted Elon Musk would have bought Twitter? How many of you would have predicted that the slap at the Academy Awards had more publicity than the winner of the Best Picture award? This is the world we live in. So,
How
um,
many would have predicted that the Queen is going to leave us?
well, we could have predicted. We might not have predicted exactly when, but unfortunately,
We
that
had an
is
idea.
part of life, yeah, that was going to happen. But although I think many people predicted Charles would not have been succeeded, she would have skipped over Charles to the next one. But that's another story
Mhm.
for another time. But yeah, we have to plan for ambiguity. We have to plan for ambiguous. And so, what I say in the book, how we measure people leaders, it used to be, we'll measure, okay, you put your plan together and how well you execute your plan, and then we'll do a performance review at the end of the year and measure you against that performance.
Mhm.
That still has to happen. I think in addition to that, we need to measure leaders. How well did you plan? What were your alternative plans? Did you have plan A, plan B1, plan B2, plan C1, C2, C3? And how well did you execute? How well did you pivot to those alternative strategies when something happened that you needed to pivot? So the old way of handling change is, change happens. Let's put a
Mhm.
task force together, put a SWAT team together, and we're all reacting. We're all panicking. The Humany leadership way is to plan for possible plausible changes, have your strategies in place, and when something triggers that, then you implement those plans. And so the best example I can give you, and it's been happening now for almost a year, but back at the holiday season at the end of 2021, the airline industry was caught unaware. They only had one plan. We're going to
Mhm.
bring people back slowly, and they anticipated a slow growth of people returning. Well, back in Thanksgiving, November, Christmas last year, people said, I can travel again. I want to visit family and friends. And so the planes were overloaded. The airline industry did not have enough staff in place. thousands and thousands of flights being canceled. Passengers, which are really customers, they're not passengers, they're customers, were being inconvenienced. And it happened again around Easter this year. And again, this is not just United States. This is UK. This is Europe. This is
Mm-hmm.
an industry problem. They are not prepared to pivot quickly. They not have multiple plans, and that's why they keep having even the 4th of July weekend, thousands of flights being canceled. My Humany leadership plan is don't do that. Have multiple scenario planning, have in place, know exactly what you're going to do. So if this gets triggered, if when your bookings come in, if on an airline industry, when they start coming in, make your change now. Don't put a team together. Oh my gosh, we're overloaded. What are we going to do? And then it's
Mm-hmm.
too late. So that's a change again in leadership mindset and leadership behavior, which I highlight in the book.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I know we've got quite a lot in the book, which we can't cover today, but at least we have an idea of what's in the book. Now, there's something I like very much, and I know those who are listening or watching also love. And you already gave us a taste of what is in the book, because there's a section in the book that is called the Stephen Howard quotes.
Oh,
On leadership. Yeah, give us a few more quotes. You told about Yoda, but that's Yoda. Now, give us the Stephen Howard leadership quotes.
well,
A
probably my
few.
my favorite, the one I use the most often, is very simple. And again, this applies to everyone, no matter where you are. It actually applies if you're an individual contributor too, because remember, we're all leaders. We lead our families. We lead whether again we're involved in community events or sporting events or whatever, sport, teaching children to play sports, whatever we're involved in. So my favorite one is very simple: never stop learning, because life never stops teaching. And so
Hmm.
having that continuous growth mindset, to be continuous learning, is for leaders definitely, but it's also for everyone. So I'll read another one. I actually opened it up here because I can't remember them all. I'm only on my first cup of coffee this morning, Anthony. I can't remember everything, but
Okay,
it's
still at it.
so great leaders are not afraid of mistakes or failures. They are only afraid of not learning from mistakes or
Hmm.
failures. And then the one I use often in my coaching practice is that progress is less about speed and more about direction. And too many organizations are trying to move too fast. Too many leaders are trying to move too fast. And if you're moving fast, but you're going in the wrong direction, you just get further and further from your goal, and you have to course correct. So keep a focus on the direction and less about the pace, less about the speed.
Hmm. That's a wonderful quotes. And we remind each and every one of you who is watching, go and get the book. Go and get the book and read the quotes, and not only the quotes, but all the insights that are shared in the book. Thank you, Mishka, for coming on. Thank you, Lydia, for the thumbs up. Thank you, Balozi, for the fire that is here in this episode, and every other person who's watching who may not have commented,
Yeah,
because maybe you're
yeah. And I got one last chance, Anthony.
before you
We've been
tell
on.
us that, before you tell us
Okay,
the last tip, because that's
okay,
usually comes in. I think you preserve
okay,
that for the last bit. That's what we
okay.
usually do. Give us the
I'll do
last
that.
tip, but that before that,
Okay.
people would want to connect with you. How can they connect with you?
My website, humanyleadership.com, is now a website. You can contact me through that. My company name is calienteleadership.com. Caliente in Spanish means hot, but it also means passionate. So I see it on the screen there. I'm passionate about leadership. You can contact me through that website. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you're a LinkedIn user, you'll see my name, Stephen Howard. I think it's Greater Los Angeles area or something like that. You can be happy to connect with you through LinkedIn as well. But yeah, please reach out to me, email me. Love to discuss this with you. I'd love to help you talk about it in your organization, and to help you implement it.
Wonderful. So go connect with Steve. And I remind you, the last time, I won't stop because I want to see it happen. Go and make Humany a dictionary term. And
Very
now,
good.
just what we've been waiting for. Give us a few words that we should always remember.
Well, the few words or the last tip, so to speak, is look, if you're working for a boss who is not a Humany leader, who is not a good boss, and if you do Secret Santa, send them a Secret Santa copy of Humany Leadership. So give them a gift, but it has to be anonymous. Obviously, you don't want to get yourself in trouble. I don't want you to commit career suicide. But if you're working for a really difficult boss who just doesn't understand this, that they need to be more human, give them a copy of Humany Leadership for a Christmas present as a Secret Santa present. How's there? That'll help you out personally.
Whoa, thank you for a wonderful Christmas gift suggestion coming from Stephen Howard. So don't say that you don't have a Christmas gift. It's here.
It's there.
Humany, the new
It's there.
dictionary term that is coming. Oh, now, this has been a wonderful, wonderful time together with Stephen Howard. We really appreciate each and every one of you who's watching, those who get to listen and watch after we are through. We also thank you in advance. And remember to share this episode. Remember to go and get the book. Go get the book.
Go get the book, Anthony, and keep watching you, Anthony. You do a great job of this. I think you're like a natural interviewer. You have such a lovely style, and it doesn't even feel like an interview. It feels like a conversation, which is quite nice. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Also, I'm humbled about that comment. Thank you. I really appreciate. And you make it lively. You are the guests that make it lively. Here, Stephen makes it the most worthy show to watch. And today, that's about it for today's episode. And I've been your host, Anthony Morore. And together with Stephen Howard, we are saying bye for now.
All the best.
Bye.
Be human. Be human to each other.
Be human.
And Humany.